Hello and welcome to Recyclist. I'm your host, Eric Provost, and I am being joined today by a very special guest. I'm incredibly excited to talk to her and all the incredible work that she is doing up at Maine Laboratories. Please tell me welcome to the show right now, the CEO of Maine Laboratories herself, Katie Richards. Thank you so much for joining me today, ma'am.
Thank you, Eric, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So, for those who might not be aware, Maine Laboratories is it's not spelled Main. It's the great state of Maine where your laboratory is located. Correct?
Yep, that is correct. And I did that on purpose when I opened the business because we're the first lab to open up in Maine that had the capability to do PFAS testing. And I really wanted our name to say, "Hey, we're here. We're here to help." Based on the focus that Maine has had in testing. For PFAS contamination, understanding the scope of that contamination, I wanted the state to know that we've kind of come into to help. And by putting Maine in the name of my laboratory, I thought that really made a big statement. At the time of opening.
Yeah, clever little double
Mm-hmm.
meaning there. I appreciate that from a marketing perspective. I definitely respect that. But PFAS is your guys' real big focus, correct? You guys opened this lab specifically to test for. I don't know if I'm ever saying this right. Polyfluoral alkyl substances.
Wow, that it was really good. Yeah, you did a great job. Yes, that's the correct pronunciation. And you're right. That's all we do. We specialize in PFAS testing, and then where we are broad, specialize in looking for contamination, but broad in we will test anything and everything. So not just water and soil; those are the two most popular tests for individual homeowners. But we test things like landfill leachate, anything coming from like a PFAS treatment system where they're trying to, invent the technology that's going to reduce or concentrate PFAS contamination. We'll do ag samples like plant tissue, animal tissue, cow serum, even like a cow rumen stomach juice. So if there's
Wow.
something that could be tested for PFAS, we are the experts in being able to do that type of broad testing.
And for a lot of the people listening to this right now, I'm sure a lot of people are of the age where they were kind of familiar with the big Teflon craze those many
Mhm.
decades and the amount of materials and the amount of products that made it into. But over the past 20, 30 years or so, there's been this kind of newfound push to deal with the this issue that we've created, and I think that there's still a lot of confusion around that for a lot of people. So I think you might be the best person to answer what kind of is the issue with PFAS, with these substances out and about in the world today.
Okay, great question. So baseline PFAS are a wonderful addition to consumer products because they make our products better, in that they make things heat resistant or oil resistant or stain resistant. And so there was a craze when Teflon was invented, and companies were looking for ways to use this new kind of miracle chemical combination to improve what it was that they were selling. So super popular. Unfortunately, they maintain in the environment, and that's why they are also called forever chemicals. So they don't naturally break down like you would expect other chemicals to do in the environment, and they're also really mobile. They love water and they love to travel, and so what you're seeing is a buildup of these chemicals, really in the environment, in our waterways, even in our drinking water. And then the reason that we care about it is if we're consuming it, it has a very long half life in humans. So it takes about 7 years for that chemical to kind of dissipate out of your system. It doesn't naturally leave your system. And so, if you have kind of continued exposure to this contamination, it will build up and build up over time. It's called bioaccumulation. And then, what they've been able to find through studies over time is that bioaccumulation can lead to some pretty negative health effects. And so, it does have a true impact on individuals if you're in one of those areas that is contaminated.
And I assume it's not just for humans. You talked about testing cow stomach
Mm,
fluid, so I
yeah.
guess this is a fairly widespread problem between anything that can eat or drink.
Yes, and I would say some of the focus on the ag side is if you have a cow that's eating grass off land that has contaminated soil, that contaminated soil will the PFAS will take up into the grass, and then the cow will eat the grass, and then the cow will be contaminated, and then the cow will give milk that has PFAS in it, and then that milk that it could hit the shelves, right, and then that could be potentially another source of contamination. We also have tested like chicken eggs, certainly animal tissues. We've got folks that are really, certainly deer hunting is and moose hunting is really popular in Maine. And so we've had individual homeowners that say, hey, I went hunting. I want to have my deer tested before, I'll put it in my freezer and we'll eat it as a family. So there's a lot of different avenues that you could get exposed to the contamination.
So how does I mean, how does something like that happen? How do these chemicals that wound up in cookware become so omnipresent throughout the environment? I mean, I know you touched on a little bit when it comes to like getting in the soil, getting in the waterways.
There's a couple major pathways that all go down. And I will tell you that trying to identify the source of contamination is a very difficult proposal to do.
Fair enough.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so just in general, it is hard to say, oh, I've got a contaminated well, and let me identify specifically the one thing that has led to that contamination. So a lot of times, the answer is going to be it's multiple things that have affected and kind of had this contamination build up. So just kind of start the conversation there. um, so you've got kind of the main ways that it would get in the systems is if you have a manufacturing plant that is producing pans that are lined with Teflon. That manufacturing plant probably has some type of industrial discharge that happens as part of the process. And keep in mind, we didn't even know that these chemicals existed, back in the 50s when they were invented, right? So
Yeah.
the plants were discharging these chemicals out into the environment, and there was nobody around to even test for them to say, hey, is this a problem or not? We didn't know it was a problem back then. The other common way that it can get in the system is just from our actual consumer products. We have so many products around us today that have PFAS that are part of them. And when you think about the shampoos or the makeup you're using and those and the lotions and all of that is running down the drain, right? When you take a shower, or you're doing wash and you've got your rain jacket that's coated in PFAS that's going through the wash, right? That's a household discharge that's happening, or you've got all this material that potentially goes in the trash and eventually lands in a landfill, and then it would be part of that landfill life cycle, right? And so there's some potential exposure there. And then a third way that it could get into the systems is out of the wastewater treatment plants that are taking care of, what comes out of our sewers naturally, part of the household discharge. Wastewater treatment plants often have a side output called biosolids, and in those biosolids, there could be PFAS contamination. And for a long time, actually, and still in many states, states will take those biosolids and spread them on farmland, and that is kind of an agreement to say, hey, we've got some highly nutrient material here that could benefit you, right? Benefit the farmland. And it's going to be a cheaper, easier way for farmers to get access to that instead of having to purchase it, full price. Um, and that's where we're seeing there's an investigation going on in Maine because there was a sludge spreading program from the 70s till about 2022, and we're finding that sludge spreading program has been a point of contamination, and we've been exploring it and identifying it, and so that's a possibility out there as well.
Till 2022. That seems kind of ironic considering that's when your lab was founded, correct?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was founded in 2022. So a lot happened that year on the PFAS front. Yeah, we founded the lab in 2022 because there was a lot of talk. Maine's been testing for PFAS extensively since 2016, and there was a lot of talk around the Sunday family dinner table with my mom. She was very concerned about PFAS, and I started Googling it and checking out. What is this contamination? Where could we potentially have it. And I was trying to figure out how to get a PFAS test for my own water, my own water, my own home, and realized through a little investigation that there were no labs in the state of Maine that were doing this test. And that seemed odd to me, right? If Maine had been testing for so long. Maine is a strong state that likes to do business with people in the state of Maine. And I was surprised nobody had taken up the challenge of doing PFAS testing. My husband happens to be a PhD analytical chemist, and so I talked to him about what would it take on the equipment side. He was familiar with the equipment, and I pitched him the idea. I said, "Hey, what do you think? Should we do this?" He's run a lab before. He's run a research lab. I've got a business background. I'm like, wouldn't this be an interesting way for us to combine our skills, and help solve a problem? And he said yes, and that's how we got started.
It's always nice when you just happen to have like the perfect subject matter expert within the household
Yes.
already. Things, hey, honey, there's no PFAS. So I was like, oh well, it's a good thing I happen to be a PhD in the
Yeah.
exact field that you need.
Yeah, it was pretty wild to think that we could do this together. And it's been unbelievable. I honestly, without him on hand, we couldn't have accomplished everything that we have. He's our chief science officer. He's working on transitioning it, but he still is looking at every piece of data that we send out to customers, double checking. It's our third level quality review right now, because we want to ensure that we're giving the highest level quality data to our clients. We take that very, very seriously. So it's been amazing to partner with him. I'm a little bit shocked it's gone so well. To be honest, if you think about working with your spouse or partner, but no, it's been a great experience for us.
Yeah, a lot of people don't really think of scientific laboratories as family businesses.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I am really interested. Just we talked about all the recent products that PFAS are still winding up in. You're not still saying that there's still that companies that manufacturers are still actively using these chemicals in the production process.
I would say they are. So what has happened is PFOS and PFOA, which are the two original PFAS compounds, those have really been taken out of service for quite some time. Still heavily found in the environment just because of the mass quantities that were used back when they originally started. But what's interesting about this PFAS umbrella is that you can change one molecule, you can change one element of that molecule and get something very similar qualities, but it's a different name. It's a different categorization. And so when you look up the definition of PFAS, online, per and polyfluoral alkyl substances, you'll find that that could range from anywhere from 5,000 different compounds to 12,000 different compounds, depending on who you're reading about. And so manufacturers are finding alternatives that they can use that give the same qualities and that still make their products very good and people love them. And they're not regulated because there's so many of them. It's almost impossible to regulate 12,000 different compounds of PFAS at this point. Um, so a lot of people are advocating for umbrella regulation instead of doing it one at a time. But I'm not sure where we stand on being able to accomplish that. Just because there's been a lot of effort on the few regulations that we have in place, it's been a huge amount of effort to get to where we are today.
It does feel like some type of umbrella legislation, some type of even remotely general description
Mhm.
would help, as opposed to trying to regulate these things specifically by the number of electrons that they happen to have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very challenging. It can be a little political too, which is unfortunate. And honestly, I would say we probably don't have all of the answers that we need yet from a scientific backing. One of our tenants or missions at Maine Laboratories is to partner with researchers, because we want to make sure that we're making their lives as easy as possible, that they can get the data they need to write the papers and publish the data and develop the science. There's thousands of questions around PFAS right now that people are working on, and we want to help be a part of delivering that story and helping the next phase or the next level of regulations come through that are appropriate based on the science that's being developed today.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. Obviously, you work with directly with customers who send you samples. They're interested about knowing the PFAS levels in, their own drinking water, their own groundwater. Um, but I figured you guys would also be trying to take a proactive stance on research and development, trying to
Mhm.
figure out and learn as much as possible. So, in terms of like the research and the experimentation and stuff like that, you guys don't necessarily do a lot of that in house, but you say you're supporting a lot of the different research institutions around the area who are.
Yeah, that's right. We actively reach out to researchers who have PFAS on their agenda, and we talk to. So my husband Chris, he's in academia. He's a chemistry professor, and so we have this, understanding of what it takes to write a grant, and what are the methods, details that we need to provide, and how do you design the experiment so it's more likely to be funded, and providing letters of support, and then even on the back end, you get the grant, you do the testing, you pull the samples, we give you the data. Like we'll go in and do an extra level of data analysis, custom reporting that can be supportive of the grant. We've taken pictures in the lab of the process, so we can send those off to the researchers, and they can include that as a graphic in their paper. And so just because Chris has that very deep experience on the academia side, it means we can be very custom in the way we support researchers, and we go out of our way of trying to engage with them and make ourselves available and known as an option.
I imagine you guys stay pretty busy to working directly with customers, though. How many people are coming to you with samples or saying like, "Hey, I think there's possibly a PFAS issue where I live or where I work." What's kind of the process that goes through when people come to you with that concern?
Yeah, individual homeowners. I probably talk to 3 or 4 homeowners a day, and I mean, I'm not sure if I should tell folks this or not, but the number that's listed on our website is actually the number comes straight to my cell phone. So if somebody's calling Maine Laboratories, they're going to talk to me, and we're still young enough that I feel that that's important. That I am hearing exactly what the client needs and what questions they have, and I can hopefully solve their problem very quickly. Um, but we're one of the few places where you can go to our website and you can go to the homeowner section and you can order a test right online. And once we get, that order through, I get an email automatically, auto generated once click purchase, and we build the kit, put it in the mail within 24 to 48 hours, and send all the directions, everything you would need to take the sample, and then you get it back to us. Our turnaround time is industry standard. We're excellent compared to our peers. So our standard turnaround time is 10 business days. And if you want the data fast, you can for an extra fee, you can turn around in 5 business days. And I email you the report. And for homeowners, I add in a little extra context like, hey, you should know this is what the drinking water guidelines are right now. Here's some links to extra resources if you have questions. Here's who you could reach out to, if you want to think about, what next steps are if they find something. So I try to be very hands-on with our customers to kind of walk them through the process the whole way.
And for any potential customers that you happen to find in an issue with, what solutions really are even out there for something like this? Do you just tell the homeowner, "I'm very sorry, but you're going to have to go to bottled water from now on," or what type of measures and plans can they even take at that point?
Bottled water is a choice if they want to do that. I would say there's some really successful like filter systems that you could install. You don't even need to you could do a whole house filter system if you wanted to, but you can even just get like a point of use system that goes under your sink, and then you just know that your sink water is filtered in the kitchen, and that's where you would drink from. And usually those filter systems that are specifically set up to treat PFAS are using some type of carbon filter.
Hmm.
Granular activated carbon is very common. That's GAC is the acronym. So there is 100% hope. It should not. The good news about getting the data, even if the data shows that there's some level of PFAS contamination, the good news is you have the answer, and now you can do something about it versus just having an unknown. And I think that was really important for me. I mean, what that's my motivation for opening the business, right? I wanted an answer on my water, and I couldn't find a place that was easily going to do that for me. And so we really want to help people have the data in hand so they can make the best decisions for themselves.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why why we're talking to you and why I'm doing this interview is there was a part of me that was really kind of hoping that my drinking water may that I have here in my own condo where I hope that I'm safe, that my own drinking water may not be an issue. I was hoping it was much more confined to bigger areas like plants and landfills and things like that. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about my next glass of tap water.
Yeah.
But again, that's the whole reason that we're talking to you, is to find out exactly how prevalent this issue is and to get people educated on what they could potentially do if they think that that's an issue. So what are
Mhm.
some of the things that people need to look for, especially at the household level, if they think, hey, I really want to get a PFAS test? What are some of the symptoms, I guess might be the best word?
Oh, that's super tough. I don't think I have a good answer for you on that, because there's not. So PFAS is odorless, colorless, right? You're never going to identify it just by looking at your water. And then if you're talking, I don't know if you use the word symptoms in kind of reference to health, but there's it's that it, health effects are something that it could take 20, 30 years for something to come around that you could say, oh, this could have been potentially related to PFAS. And even then, it's super hard to make that connection. So there's not going to be anything in the moment that you're going to say, "Ooh, I'm not feeling great. It must be because of my water." So I have some recommendations I make for folks that I talk to in general. If you are on a well, and this is like in general, you should be testing your water probably once a year, anyways. For normal water testing, like nitrates and arsenic, and I don't even know what all the things are included in a normal water test because we don't do that at Maine laboratories. But I would do a baseline PFAS test on your well, and then you don't have to do that every year for PFAS contamination specifically, but do it, get an understanding initially, and then I would say maybe every 2 or 3 years you go back in and check again. Or if you're on a well and you see something is happening nearby, if there's construction going on, right? There's a lot of digging, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of shaking of the ground, or somebody is drilling a well right next door to you, that could have an impact on the way that the water flows underground and what it is that you're getting in your well. So if you're seeing some kind of movement and activity, maybe you would say, okay, I'll wait 3 months after that's done. I'll get another baseline test done because of those changes. And I always prioritize water testing first for homeowners because that's the most aggressive. You're consuming that, right? You're drinking it. You're hopefully drinking water every single day. And so if you were looking at something that could, accumulate, that would accumulate fastest. And so always it's a water test first, and highly recommend for anybody on a well.
So for homeowners, for at the kind of individual consumer level, you think water is kind of the biggest possible concern when it comes to PFAS? Would they even uh, would homeowners really even come to you with any other type of test?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've got soil testing is our number two most popular, and soil testing in Maine is big. And I would say because Maine has a culture of folks who want to have their own garden beds and grow their own produce and be self-sustaining.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So if you have a garden and you're growing, good amount of your food and you're canning your food, and that's another avenue, right, that you could be exposed. Because if you have PFAS in the soil, then it would uptake into the plants. And so, yeah, soil would be our number two most popular. And then beyond that, it would get into like kind of the animal tissue testing, for the deer meat hunters. We've done turkey meat testing before. A couple farmers have had their eggs tested. I've had cheese come through, or milk testing as well. And then we've done some compost, wood chips, different types of plants. So there's a ton of variety there, but our two most popular: water number one, soil number two for homeowners.
Yeah. Well, it sounds that outside of, individual homeowners, outside of the kind of, singular customers that you might deal with, basically anybody in the agricultural or waste industry may want to give you guys a call at some point. Would that be correct?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we like to do the tough stuff. Like if there's a tough thing that nobody else wants to test, my answer is yes. Please bring it to me because I want to expand our capabilities and our expertise within the team, and my whole team is ambitious. Like that. They hold the same goals. So yeah, no, we want to say yes where other people say no.
Nice. It's well, we talked a little bit about the support that you give for research institutions and for a lot of people out there trying to learn as much as possible. Are there any are there any experiments that are ongoing, or maybe any recent reports that have come out that you find particularly interesting that you might point people toward if they're trying to learn more about PFAS?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. That's a bit of a pop quiz for me. I don't know if I have a specific report to share, but I can tell you some of the research that I'm really excited to see the results from are some experiments that are related to contaminated soil and then some distribution of different types of plants and looking at what types of plants pull up the PFAS out of the soil at a higher rate than others. And so there's two things that could come out of those papers when they are published. One is you may find that there's a plant that you could consider like a remediation type process for your soil. It could pull the PFAS out and then your soil is better able to be used in the future. And then the other is if you find that there's plants that don't take up PFAS very well, the opposite end, maybe those are plants that are good to be used on contaminated land. You could say, oh, well, that's a plant I can put that down on the farmland and I could potentially sell that as some type of crop or cover crop. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting to see what the results of those studies are.
Nice. In terms of just general education, general knowledge, what do you think is the best repository, the best place to point people toward if they're trying to learn?
Yeah, I would say I've used the EPA website around PFAS several times. I go back to that as a resource. I also, this might be a little bit too nerdy. I've got a Google alert for anything PFAS across the United States. So I get emailed articles about, testing kind of constantly and people that are finding PFAS contamination and then people that are fixing it. They're putting in systems to fix it. So I find that that's been really valuable. And then there's a couple resources. I could send you the link. There's a great kind of subscriber model on LinkedIn. There's a newsletter. It doesn't cost anything, but it's a fellow I met at a conference in March, and he does a roundup of all the research once a week. And so, if you're able to include links on your podcast, Eric, I'd love to send you the link to that
Yeah,
newsletter.
to any of the listeners, you're listening to this in the future where she has already sent me that link, and you can find it in the description of this episode.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate that.
No worries. Uh, but I do like the idea that you set up a Google alert. So I maybe it'd be a good idea for anybody who possibly has concerns about PFAS to start, kind of looking at local news and keeping up
Mhm.
with maybe their own, uh, you know, drinking water reservoirs and stuff that's going on with that. Because I do see a lot of reports coming out because there's a lot of wastewater and a lot of water reservoirs being tested for, especially COVID these days. There's always some type of test going on. So maybe it's a good idea for people to keep up with, especially their own local area testing, probably.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I mean, I'm remiss to not have said, Eric, hey, go check our website out at www.mainlaboratories.com because we've got some great articles and references for homeowners if they have questions on how to read the reports or, background on PFAS. What does it mean? So we have some great resources there as well.
I do want to make sure that we're pointing people in the right direction as far as getting tests done. Is Maine Laboratories only able to service the Northeast of the United States, or how big of an umbrella do you guys have for testing?
That's a great question. So we're national, and I would say that actually the majority of our business comes from outside of the Northeast. So we've done testing, all over the United States, out to the West Coast, up into Canada, and so we're it's super simple, right? We send the sample to you. You go ahead and take the sample, and you just mail it back to us. right? Mail it overnight UPS, we get it in the lab, and then we're able to do all of our processing in-house in Maine. So no, there's no boundaries in who we can support from a testing perspective. And we've recently, end of last year, we achieved our NELAP accreditation, which is a big deal. That's a national accreditation assessment that is done. We got that based out of New Hampshire, but it opens up the door for several other states to be accredited in. So we're also accredited just in generally for drinking water testing in Vermont, New Hampshire, Kentucky, Georgia, Minnesota, and we've got a couple more states on the list that we're going to be pursuing. Now, you don't have to live in one of those states to get a PFAS test, because our PFAS test, whether we're accredited in the state or not, gives you the same data. So if you're just looking for information to understand if you need to put a filter in, we are able to do that for you.
How do you go about getting an accreditation like that? I hope it's a little bit easier than, or I hope it's a little bit more involved rather than getting a uh, than getting an online college certificate.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's pretty intense actually, Eric. And that's so we've got our national accreditation, and then in May, so just a couple months ago, we leveled up to ISO 17025, which is an international accreditation, and we also have DoD Environmental Lab accreditation, DoD Lab. So for all of those processes, it does. Somebody comes on site. They come in. They come into our lab. They spend 2 or 3 days talking to my lab technicians, my operations manager, opening up every binder we have, looking at every process that we have in place, looking at our reports, looking at our data, making sure that we have what's called traceability. And what that means in layman's terms is 2 years from now in 2027, if somebody wants to come back to my lab and say, you did this test on July 3rd of 2025, I want to know what the lot a number was of the pipette tip you used to prep that sample. I need to be able to provide that data to them. So it's totally traceable. Every single element of what touches that sample, we can identify the manufacturer, the lot number that was used. We'll have a certificate of analysis on site to say that it was, that we've tested it and it is good fit for use to use in our processes. It's very, very in depth.
Wonderful. And you said what was your website again, there, Katie?
www.mainlaboratories.com. And I have a little bit of a transition announcement. I don't know if we have time for that, Eric.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so when we opened the business, I also purchased the website PFAS Laboratories.com. And I did that because I knew eventually we would be moving into a national space, and it's, certainly facilitating testing outside of the state of Maine. And so we are working through a transition of our branding right now. We are going to move away from Maine Laboratories, and we will be known as PFAS Laboratories going forward. And if you were to put in www.pfaslaboratories.com right now, it would bring you to our website. They're totally connected. So it's seamless, and you can get to us either way.
Nice. When is that official transition going to end for anybody who may be listening to this podcast in the future?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's say I'm in the midst of it, but I expect to be complete by September 1st of 2025.
Beautiful, beautiful. So here in the near future, you guys are going full on national.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
Wonderful.
we're already national. We're just going to be dropping the Maine, the state of Maine indicator. PFAS Laboratories is just a much better indicator of the work that we do.
I mean, you could theoretically just drop the E from Maine Laboratories, and
That's right.
so I mean, I'm sure that's already a lot of work. But what else do you guys see on the horizon for Maine Laboratories, or also to be known as PFAS Laboratories?
We are working on some lower priced options for testing, and actually, we've just finalized it in the last week. We put a test on Amazon that is a little bit of a different process. It uses different equipment in the lab. It uses a few less consumables and takes less time to process. And that PFAS test gives you the same level and quality of data as any of our accredited methods, but it comes in at about half the price. So a normal water or soil test is about $400, and this test on Amazon provided by PFAS Laboratories is $195. So it cuts the price in half.
And what should
Uh,
people search for if they're trying to find that on Amazon right now?
I think PFAS test kit or pfaslaboratories.com would get you that product. So we're very excited. We've done a ton of work to validate that method in the lab and make sure that it's got the highest level quality of data that we can. And we think that will lower the barrier for folks that have concerns about their, I mean, kind of like what you described, Eric, earlier, about their drinking water and want to get it tested, but don't want to invest, so much money into an accredited method. So we're excited about that and hope to expand that beyond just water. We'd like to do the same type of testing, but do it on soil or biosolids or solids in general. And so that's the development that we're working on in the lab right now. It can sound super scary, when you talk about all the different ways that you could be exposed to PFAS contamination. And I don't want people to listen to this and think, oh gosh, there's no hope, or oh gosh, what have we done? There's nothing we can do to help fix it. So I know that there's a lot of work going on in individual states in trying to remove PFAS from the shelves. So in products, there's legislation that's happening to take it out of, common products so we can get it out of the system. I think that's super good. And we as consumers can, we make choices when we purchase things with our money. And so if you have interest and concern and want to make a difference, I think you could always say, let me choose the PFAS free option of whatever it is that you're looking for. And know that if you find it in your water, you can put a filter system in there. It's not a no hope situation. It's just, hey, let's take some action to make it better.
The PFAS free option, is that a thing?
Well, it's starting to become a thing. So you could search, you can Google what companies are going PFAS free, and I don't want to say any during this podcast because I don't want to get it wrong, but because of the public response and the public request for PFAS free products, you're starting to see manufacturers hit that tipping point where it's important for them to invest in PFAS free options. So yeah, you're seeing it more and more. If you go to try to buy a frying pan, if you go to like Walmart or Target,
Mm-hmm.
you will go down the aisles today and you probably would see pans, with like a ceramic coating, and they probably would say on it PFAS free or PFOA free or PFOS free. So you can find that type of documentation when you're out shopping right now.
Wonderful. Well, Katie, I think you've certainly given us a lot to think about over the past few minutes. We'll see how much longer you can stand having your personal cell phone number
I
attached to
know,
the
Eric.
website.
That's a great point. We'll see how long that lasts. I don't know.
But if you have any questions for Katie or for Maine Laboratories / PFAS Laboratories, you can directly get in touch with the CEO as of this recording. We'll see how long that lasts. But Katie, thank you so much for joining us today and educating us on PFAS. I'm not trying to scare anybody out there. It's like, oh, you have an imminent danger of bioaccumulation, biosolid accumulation. No, but this is an issue that we are aware of, that we are testing
Mhm.
for, and that you should probably educate yourself on a little
Yep.
bit. And once again, thank you, Katie, for helping us do that today. We really appreciate you coming on and letting us know about what's going on within the world of polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, as they are colloquially known.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate the discussion.
Awesome. Make sure to go ahead and check out everything that they're doing over at Maine Lab / PFAS Laboratories. But do me a favor, to everybody listening right now, make sure to give some love to Diamond Scientific, the sponsor of Recyclist and the company that helps make this podcast possible. You can check them out online at diamondsci.com. That's diamondsci.com. Or you can even set up a personalized presentation just by calling 321-223-7500. Once again, I've been your host, Eric Provost, and we will see you back here next time for another brand new episode of Recyclist. Thank you.